Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Robles, and I am the CEO and founder of the CoEngineers, of the Integrated Engineering Blockchain Consortium. And we have the projects of IEBC and CoEngineers. We are building a blockchain for the engineering profession. This is our weekly State of the Chain meeting where we review the events of the week and we report outbound to our guests, our team members, our partners, and other participants. Shout out right now, I'd like to give a special thanks to Blockhouse for their support and their efforts in helping us with our compliance issues with our organization and with our the formation of the businesses. Today, we're going to start a different process for the State of the Chain meeting. It's going to be shorter. It's going to be more concise. I'm going to start with a topic related to the chain, related to the project, and then we are going to do reporting outbound of from the various directors. They've throughout the week, we've gone through the work. We're taking a summary of what's happened. I'm taking a summary of what happened during the week. We have a Discord channel, and you can find that by visiting iebc.co or visiting coengineers.io. There should be a link somewhere to the Discord channel. After this meeting, we usually have an after party, which is actually quite a lot of fun, and it's not videotape, but it's where everybody gets together and discusses stuff live. So to start things off, I'm going to talk about something called the 6 tenets of Curiosame. Now, Curiosame is a document that we is a business method that we published several years ago, and the new rendition of that is sort of baked into blockchain now. This is pre-blockchain. It's baked into the blockchain effort. And there's 6 things that we found in the last 25 years of doing this work. There's 6 fundamental truths that we found that need to be in place to create the data that we need to, ultimately reach our goal. And why it's important is that these 6 things often conflict. Now recording. These 6 things often conflict with what a traditional venture capitalist would want to see in a business. What I'm going to do right now is just do a quick process check. I got an odd message from YouTube, and I'm just going to check it to see what that is. Is there anything weird out there, Alicia? Did you hear anything? Are we still recording? Okay, I'm going to assume we are still recording. So the first thing is that the topmost ontology for anything, say the Dewey Decimal System is for books, or the Library of Congress is to the National Archives. That's an ontology, and whoever controls the ontology really controls the flow of information.
Not hearing anything on Discord.
Excuse me? Excuse me? Can you hear anything?
Now it's better.
Oh, so
I can hear your voice.
Okay, so I was can you hear it on could you hear it on the YouTube?
Yes, both are live. The YouTube is delayed by about 2 seconds.
Okay, so I have to press a button if we're going to be doing this on Discord, the whole thing. Should we continue that way or not?
If it's not too much for you, please continue.
Okay, please excuse the delay. So I'm going to press this button down so they can hear it on Discord. So when we talk about topmost ontology, the topmost ontology, whoever controls the ontology really controls the flow of the data. So for what we're talking about, the ontology needs to belong to the commons. In the Curiosity video, we described Wikipedia as being that public database from which everything will emanate from. But what we're doing instead with this rendition of CoEngineers is we're developing the ontology itself as people add content to the database. So that's what's important, is that the database, the ontology, is created by the people in the commons. The next point of Curiosity is that it's non-competitive. So we've discovered a ranking system which isn't competitive, which isn't 1 to 0 or 1 to 5 or something like that. And the reason why is not because we're anti-competitive, it's because competition is very expensive. You have to have a vetting mechanism, you have to have judges, you have to have a jury, you have to have some sort of punitive measure for cheating, and that's all very expensive overhead. So competition is good when everybody has equal information, and but we don't always have that. So it's not really a valid pursuit. So what we have is a non-competitive ranking system, and that is on the scale of student to teacher. So what we do is we look at events in terms of, we classify people in terms of student or teacher. Sometimes I'm the student, sometimes I'm the teacher, and then that's how we generate value in the system. The third process is self-selecting. Everybody needs to self-select their position. So if you're an engineer, you make a claim to the database, you make the claim, you self-select your claim. And the reason for this is because you're going to have somebody validate you. So you've sort of separated the validation from the claim. And it also states your intentions. And this is what we want. We want to know what in order to get the data in the right format, we want to know what a person's intentions are. So when they make a claim, they're stating their intentions. So advertisers, for example, they would want to know what you bought in the past so they could try to predict what you'll buy in the future. So that the whole idea of stating intentions is very important. It would be much better if they could find some way for people to state their intentions, and then they can work with that information. Well, we're not working with that with advertisers, so that's not the reason why we do it, but we need to get the data in a fairly pure manner. The third section of that is the learn, collaborate, teach, scale. I just mentioned that. That's one of the ranking system that we're using. So learn, collaborate, teach is not going to be any other system. This is how we form our asset by organizing ourselves in that sort of structure. Then there's another thing called anonymity until point of transaction. So as we build our system out, we are going to honor people's anonymity until the point of transaction. So you can't really, there's an argument for being anonymous. There's an argument for having identity right up front. But you don't need to know somebody's identity to sell them a sandwich or to understand or to greet them on a bus or to help them out with something. You just don't need to know that information. And it's just another complexity. You have to house that information. You have to guard that information. You have to safeguard it. And that's very inefficient. So we're sort of like Craigslist. You get to see the entire database. And then when you're ready to do a deal, then you expose your identification. So these are things that we need to preserve in the system. And the last one is the formation of an asset. When we talk about an asset, you see it all the time. People say this is a crypto asset, or they'll say when you generate the asset, you get to. But the definition is wrong. An asset must be described in terms of a quantity and a quality, and you can't avoid that. If you have a glass of water, that's water itself is not an asset, but a glass of water is quantity is 8 ounces. Drinking water is the quality of that water. Or is it 800 acre feet of irrigation water? The water is the same, but the asset's completely different. So it's important that we have to specify an asset in terms of a quantity and quality. So that's going to be what drives a lot of the of the formation of ideas in this blockchain. So that was that's a question that comes up a lot. These questions of the 6 tenets. It's also very important that you can refer to these. There's a blog article on this topic, especially if you're a developer coming on board right away, or if you are assisting somebody else coming on right away and wondering why we do certain things, or you're wondering kind of what's the underlying philosophy or the underlying algorithm, how's that based? These are where you're going to get some of those answers. So this is hard baked, and these things won't change. They're going to become part of our Constitution. And likewise, anything that's not part of the 6 tenets can be variable. It doesn't matter what color the application is. It doesn't matter. A lot of things don't matter, but there's some things that do matter, and this is one of them. So what I'm going to do now is go through the events of the week. Just bear with me a moment. can't believe I'm using paper. It's like trying to remember how to ride a bicycle. I haven't used it in so long. So we start with operations. So operations is responsible for pulling everybody together under a common target. And they're the ones who, when we impose a constraint or something, they're the ones who get it and enforce it. And the current constraint, the current thing we're trying to do is raise money. And this is the 1055 initiative that that's being published. Feel free to look that up. And one moment, please. Okay, so we need to mute that that listener. Thank you very much. So this week, the focus was on sales. So operations are creating a pitch deck for the 1055. So this is something that any of the directors can go forward with and actually engage investors or communities or anybody we need to. It's a pitch deck for the 1055 initiative. And after that, we elevate them to a higher level discussion, such as contracts or something else. So that's part of the go-to-market strategy. How do we get this idea out? Who do we approach? What sorts of groups are we looking for? As you know, 1055 stands for 10 engineering firms, 5 banks, and 5 insurance companies, and bringing them on board in a common project in collaboration is the objective. They're also working on systems for onboarding for teams. We have new groups of people coming up. They're also developing a roadmap, and this is information that's going to go on to the next iteration of the white paper. So as I mentioned, they're identifying the section leads, the engineering, banking, and insurance, which groups of people within our organization will be addressing those 3 entities. And then they're also working with the governance. So that will be the big picture. But co-creator is heading up the government section. And what they're doing is they're putting together the last installment of the white paper. And this will discuss the governance model for IEBC, the enterprise, and it'll include, it's not limited, but it'll include the following components. The internal decision-making process for IEBC, the roles and responsibilities of the members, the terms of use and expected behaviors of the participants, the engineering code of ethics, and it's a combination of US, German, and Canadian ethics we're going to be adopting in our own governance model. And then the blockchain governance itself, witness nodes, where do they go to? How are we going to sign them? How are we going to elect members to hold a witness? And this is the, I guess they're called block originators in other projects. We just call them witness nodes because that's what makes sense in a real world application. So the governance, so co-creator has been working on that, and they've created this the draft constitution for members to sign, and it's on the blockchain now. And this is special thanks to Thomas for digging into that as well with them. And then the Constitution builds on the EOS Constitution that was proposed by Dan Larimer. So they're going through a very similar set of events that we'll be going through shortly. So we're watching them closely and how they progress and what they learn from their errors and their successes. Ours will reference we won't reference any published code or engineering ethic. Let me see. We are drafting. So Kim Allen is working from his experience in the regulatory environment and in the professional society environment to really bring in the code of ethics for the group. So we're combining that with a lot of existing executive experience. So the code of conduct will likely remain a wireframe until we see how the blockchain plays out a little more. And this makes sense. It's sort of the theory of, you watch what people, where they wear the path in the lawn before you lay the sidewalk. So we want to see how people are behaving and how people are working, what problems we do get into. It's sort of an interesting form of regulation. It's like I think when I was in Japan, I remember the way they enforce laws are different. They just tell you there's a law and they don't enforce it, except when there's a problem, and then they come down and they fix it. So it's a passive enforcement, which is always best because that's more efficient, and nobody wants to be beaten up on anybody in a punitive manner. So we just want to make sure that everybody's creating content, and we think that engineers are pretty well. They're self-managing to a very large degree, and the last thing we want to do is get in their way. So for all of this, we need impartial reviewers to co-edit and to figure out if there's any problems or things that we're not considering. So if you're considering joining this organization or helping us out with this project, this is one area where we could use some help, and your experience would be deeply valued. Daryl is our Chief Information Officer, and Chief Information Officer is doing just a heck of a lot of work this week, especially. We had that talk in Washington, D.C. with the Harvard MIT alumni group, and that was a huge production. In terms of, we had to videotape it, and we had to bring people together. We had to meet and greet people afterwards. We had to have some technical problems. We were able to salvage it, now creating and editing these videos that are going to become important content for us. Daryl is also holding together the websites, and he's developing promotional material for 1055. And he's working the front end of the blockchain as well, the branding of the blockchain and in matters such as that. And he's also helping with the onboarding of new individuals, especially in the tech sector, because I've met some developers, and I met some people with various levels of experience in websites and in applications and so forth, and we just want to get them allocated correctly. So we run them through Daryl, and then he's able to understand, okay, well, is this person better off with Michelle, or is this person better off with marketing? What's going to be what their big interest is in? So getting to marketing, we have a lot of content to curate, and we've got a lot of. We're building a 45-second video narrative for Thomas, and that will be turned into a video. We have this huge MIT Harvard video series that's being cut down into smaller pieces that needs to be distributed, and it's got to be set up on individual videos, which is a lot of work. So the marketing is going to be distributing that in, I guess, the guerrilla marketing right now, because we don't have the funds to really put out an advertising campaign. So these will be going up on our websites. They'll be going up on our various social media properties. A lot of Twitter use. We'd like to get more people involved with that content distribution. So there's been blog posts by myself and by Thomas that need to be set up on Medium and all the other different social media properties. I just released a video from the Seattle Blockchain panel, the 2018 panel that we did last week. So that's ready to go up and be distributed. I have the Silicon Valley panel that we did a couple of months ago. That's ready. It'll probably be better for a mini vid format, because there's a lot of chatter and other people talking on it. So if we want to get our message through, we'll dice that up, and that falls flat on Daryl's desk again, who we're overloading, I'm certain. Matt Bowers, I don't know if you know him, but he worked with us on the ASCE award that we won, and he's in Silicon Valley accepting an award, or he did last night, accepted an award on our behalf from Block World in San Jose. I didn't get a chance to go to that conference. I would have liked to, but there was a lot of work. And if we had a speaking opportunity, we definitely would have done it, but it was kind of a little bit late notice. But it's a good group of people, and I really, really appreciate the award that they recognized us for that. So we're loading up the tweet deck. We've got some special help from some new assistants, Ty and Sophia. We thank them deeply for participating with us. I mean, there's just so much. One more page, so bear with me. There's just so much happening. It's just incredible how much we're getting done, and this is all going to pay back in a very big way. As things propagate through social media, all this exposure is going to be appearing. We've got some upcoming conferences. September 25th, the GBA Denver chapter. I believe that's the Denver chapter. September 20th, I'll be speaking, I believe, remotely for that. September 25th, Seattle Blockchain Summit. I'll be speaking with that also. That'll be here in town. And that's going to be it's a very small, close net group at a very fancy spot in Seattle. We'll see how it turns out. Good group of people though. October 19th is the Global Blockchain Summit. I believe that's in Denver. This is Thomas's note. September 5th, we have the PLMX conference. I'm sorry, that's November 5th. The PLMX conference, that's Product Lifecycle Management Conference that's going to be in Chicago. So November 9th, we got another token summit in Seattle. November 15th, we've got a CAS annual meeting. It's CAS, I don't know what that means. Maybe we'll figure that out. But this is Thomas's notes, so he's keeping track of those. And then there's various speaking engagements in the middle. There's an interview with Arab and a few other things. But all these conferences and events are going to result in publications and in media. The innovation project for the week is being done by Thomas, and he's doing something really interesting. He's working on the concept of these virtuous circles. Now we have a virtuous circle which defines the relationship between engineering technology, FinTech, financial technology, and insurance technology. But taking that a few steps further, you can start nesting these virtuous circles. And he's looking for this cause and effect flow diagram for how we're starting up a two-sided micro network concept. So we have the research is continuing, and we've had a lot of work with Jacobs Engineering has been our primary I would say laboratory for a lot of this work, and Thomas and they're starting to really understand it. They got a new chief innovation officer. This is Jacobs, one of the largest engineering firms in the world, and they're putting together a blockchain body of knowledge, or they're trying to find a group of the people in their organization who know and understand blockchain. And of course, Thomas is among the top candidates for that. So we see internal movement within a corporation, and that's only going to be duplicated in other corporations. So everything is sandboxing, everything is learning. Technological, we're currently in alpha test with our blockchain, and I've been on it, and I mean, I could see the future. It's absolutely amazing. It's great. I mean, it's kind of clunky, but we're just starting out. There's some things we have to work out. But if you've seen how this type of blockchain works, you've seen how this type of blockchain grows, and you see where we are, you'd be really, really excited. And I certainly am. So there's great work from Michel and his team for building our own blockchain. I mean, that is absolutely significant. So what we've done is we've created several valid conditions that we need to reach in order for us to fulfill a legal definition of. So we can't sell tokens to fund a project, but if we have an existing project which is considered a working prototype, then tokens can be used to improve that, and that's not a security. So it's an odd little a legal condition we need to fulfill. And in order to do that, we've defined our working prototype as having components of ease and registration, graphics and pictures, a P2P token exchange, internal branding, and there's a few, and an observation of 2 data sets. So that's nice in general because we don't have to have these things completely nailed. We just have to have them existing, and we can point to them and say, look, we are compliant. But those are also what make it a working blockchain. I'm getting calls from people that I've worked in my past organization, by CoEngineers.com, and I'm going to start putting some content on this blockchain, which is in fact commercially viable and paid for and profitable. So that completes the circle. Once we have, we've got 2 components. This is why we're attractive to venture capitalists. This is why we're attractive to the blockchain community in general, is because we have a hybrid model. We have a working profit-making corporation, IEBC, and then we have this foundation, which is a blockchain. We're just not a pure crypto play, and we're not an old-fashioned organization. We've successfully put together a hybrid, and we're using a novel use of tokens to measure intrinsic value. And this is something else that the entire blockchain spectrum is they're struggling to understand. Where's the value? Where's the intrinsic value? Where is that? They haven't had the big blockbuster blockchain application come out, and a lot of it has to do with intrinsics. But we're also seeing some of these in the older, somewhere at one point in time in between um, social media and blockchain, there was a period where people were working on community currencies, and they're working on co-ops and different ways of producing using social media. And then blockchain came, and all that research kind of fell off the wagon, but now it's starting to come back. And that is super exciting, because those are the ideas that we need to be out there. How do you attach the value of these tokens to a human being, to a person, to the productivity that they do, to the intangibles that they create? I mean, money measures land, labor, and capital just fine. We don't need another way of measuring land, labor, and capital. That's the thing that everybody's fighting over and causing all the stability. We need a way to measure new forms of value, like social capital, creative capital, intellectual capital, empathy, kindness, interaction, and social interaction between people. That social fabric that we're building, the professional associations, the student and the teacher collaborations, and so forth. So we're addressing all those things in this project, and I hope you see that it's moving on at a very comprehensive pace, very quickly. It's covering a lot of area. It's not incredibly deep, but we're getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and eventually we're going to have this viable model out there. So all the pieces are coming together, and we're kind of closing up here on the half hour. And I really appreciate you coming. And I guess we could probably take a few questions and answers if you have any. Anybody out there in Discord world. And if you're not on Discord, then join Discord and interact with our community. Thank you very much.